Alright, it looks like the camera mount will work pretty good. And now I can actually just mount it on the fender or what have you. But there's the bolts we're going after. Right there. Let me move the camera a tiny bit there. See there? So we should be able to get that stuff out, but it's probably going to be difficult. So I'm going to go ahead and take my beat up can of PB, not PB, whatever, and I'm going to spritz her down here. I don't care. It's everywhere. That'll make it nice. I'm going to take that off. I had it off to get it running. And actually, it's in really good shape, so they won't need another air filter. But it's been snowing here in Tennessee this week, pretty heavy for us anyway. And people out up north, they know it's a whole lot worse than what we deal with. But 3 inches snows us in. So now we get down to the bolt that's underneath us. The camera's not going to be able to see it, but if it ain't already pointed at the ground. Yeah. Yeah, it's sliding. Yeah, it's tighten the zip tie a little. Click, click. Alright. So, all the stuff is moving, but these carburetors, for the customer's purposes, are not cheap enough to pay our time to rebuild them. So the kits are almost as expensive as the carburetor itself, and I've already got one here. And so there's a bolt on the other side. They used a Phillips head on this side for the 1/4-20 bolt that goes into the carburetor itself, and then they used what feels like a 3/8 on the other side, just on the straight across from that. And that's going to make this job a little bit easier. I usually have to rebuild, or rethread some of these Chinese carburetors because they put the wrong thread pattern on them a lot of times. What I'm going to do first, I reckon, is go get a Phillips and start with the hardest thing first. That's what I try to do. I've seen some other guys want to start with the easiest thing and work their way up to the hardest thing, but I don't like doing that because sometimes even the easy stuff will kind of get you wore out, and then by the time you get to what should be the hardest thing, now you're too wore out to do it, or your patience is done worn too thin. And it came out pretty nice. Don't think PB Blaster had anything to do with that one. And since the air filter is kind of a perfect little bucket here, it also looks like they have, let's see, I think that's it. I think that's a 3/8, so it's very possible it's a 7/16. Whizzing noise you hear. I don't know if you can see the battery charger going on another machine. It almost never work on one machine at a time. off the ground, so it's a good idea to do it that way so you can trip over it and knock everything off the workbench. Yay! Feeling my way down to where I gotta be. What size did I say it was? 7/16 or 3/8? It was 7/16. And I probably could give you the model numbers and stuff off of this engine so that you would know that this is the exact engine that you might be working on if this video ever makes it to the internet anyway. But all of these flathead, bigger horsepower, which is above, bigger horsepower is above 6 to me. So they don't really have a 6, it's always a 5 or 3. But these ones with the updraft carburetor, they're all basically the same design. Hence why they can just take and give you one carburetor that goes to like 4 different horsepower levels. And a lot of times they say, well, this model number is the only one of this design or whatever. And that's a lot of times it's a lie. It's not the truth. There's also a 7/16 underneath the car, but hopefully the mount ain't letting this camera move around, but I gotta quit watching the camera and do some work, get some work done here. At least tear something up. Good grief, that one's long-winded. There it goes. Put that down here. Air filter assembly just kind of pops off. It's got a little O-ring that's in there. What? Something new holding it on. Oh. Yeah, and we'll probably have to replace the fuel line. Not probably. We will replace the fuel line because the fuel line's hard as a rock. No fuel. Is there any fuel in the tank? No fuel in the tank. I'm gonna mess with this carburetor a minute here. This old carburetor might clean up. We might be able to just reuse the old one. It's not normal, but the I'm disgusting, I don't, but the way I usually test these is I'll take, and just all carburetors in general, but this is the way it sits on the machine. You can blow air through the fuel inlet. Don't know if you can see. You blow air through the fuel inlet like that. You probably can't hear the noise, but I can easily hear air blowing through the needle valve. Now, flip the carburetor upside down and blow through it to see if it's got any, to see if it'll let me blow any air through it. And this one's letting me blow air through it. And if it was my machine, yes, I could easily pull this apart, try to clean it, but if you break this one here is one that's designed with a gasket. If you tear the gasket, you have to get a kit, and just the kit alone costs more than the little Chinese knockoff that goes on it, and the Chinese knockoffs work perfectly. The last 3 that I've done, they work perfect from this vendor. So now I'm going to go find that. not, if you can see inside this shop, it's an absolute disaster all the time. Because undiagnosed ADHD, possibly, ADD, whatever, slight mental retardation, Asperger's, I don't know. There's something wrong with me. But anyhow, here's the new one. Very, very similar to the old one. Here's a few slight differences. One is going to probably be that the original bolts are not going to fit in the threads on this. Right. So if I don't have my quarter 20 tap to run through there, but if you have a tap, just run it through and re-tap them. If you don't have a tap, I wouldn't use the original bolts. I would get another quarter 20 bolt and zip it in there with an impact, but being very careful not to break it off in there, of course, because then you just cause yourself a lot more work. But if you run it in and out a few times with an impact, it'll zip it on in and straighten the threads